Our next game is Revolution X, which was nominated by @BonusLizard.
I like that name. I don't know why. It just rolls off the tongue really well.
All hate mail to @BonusLizard.
Yeah, he suggested some incredibly interesting games, I'll say. I think he's one of those that took my challenge to lowest ranking game to heart, so I'm not sure if we need more of this.
Don't encourage them to do this.
Okay, so, all right, developed and published by Midway, released for the arcade on May 23rd, 1994, which implies that somebody cared enough about this game to actually note the release date in the arcade, which seems suspicious to me.
Oh, I'm sure Midway had like a trillion flyers. That was kind of their thing, to arcades, and it's just like
so here, okay, so
whatever.
It's a light gun arcade game.
Kind of light gun. It's one of those fixed cabinet guns, right? It's not
right. Yeah, like Operation Wolf was probably the genesis of that sort of game. Its framework is more or less based off of a prior Midway game based on Terminator 2. In fact, it is almost exactly that, except that you shoot exploding CDs instead of grenades.
So...
They said music is a weapon. I don't think that's what they meant.
Music is the weapon! I've been sober for 35 years! Rock and roll!
You sound like Dr. Roxo from Metalocalypse.
So this is a licensed game. Has the coveted Aerosmith license. For some reason, in the mid-90s, Aerosmith considered itself like...
No, we gotta do, guys! Make a video game! That's what all the kids are watching! Or playing! I don't know!
Actually, didn't Aerosmith more or less go on an inexplicably big career revival?
They were nobody until... they were somebody in the 70s, although nobody was sober enough to remember exactly. I think they're from Boston or some other dump. And I love you, Boston.
None of us are Aerosmith fans, just to get
Well, actually, I like 70s Aerosmith.
That's fair.
I think they're okay. I mean, the thing is like Aerosmith had this weird career comeback in like the early 90s for some reason where people pretended like they were a new relevant band. But I think it was mostly because they had those videos with, what's her name in them?
Liv Tyler. No, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steven Tyler's daughter, no less.
So, here's the thing about this game. You are some guy who's apparently a fan of Aerosmith. Or two other guys who are Aerosmith fans.
Like some kind of weird Gestapo... culture Gestapo kind of has taken over America Land or whatever.
Yeah.
And they've confiscated all the Aerosmith music. I can't tell whether Aerosmith has been kidnapped or whether they're like the leaders
they're
of the
kidnapped early on in the game, kind of.
Hi, I'm Aerosmith's Joe Perry. You guys need to help us save the music.
So, I gotta ask, I'm not a huge fan myself, so were Aerosmith ever particularly anti-authority? Was that their thing?
No, no.
I mean, that's just one of those like generic rock band things, isn't it? Just like, we're not for the power, man.
The crazy thing is that this, so it's called Revolution X, which is playing on the brief period of marketability for the term Generation X.
Yeah, this game
which is a generation that was supposed to be too cynical to ever care about this kind of thing. So it was really marketed towards 11-year-olds, who I guess would not be. I don't know. I'm kind of a tweener. I don't really fall into either one.
I mean, the setting of the game is kind of ripped out of the 80s. That was kind of the...
It is very 80s. It's kind of like more like a Twisted Sister universe that Aerosmith just kind of invaded, because it's all about like the enslavement of like, I don't know, like bikini car show models or something. And they're like breaking like rocks on like a chain gang and stuff.
They're breaking televisions and arcade machines.
Oh, right. Yeah. All the stuff that kids love. All the stuff that rocks.
This game is just a really weird time capsule.
It is an incredibly cynical marketing bullet aimed directly towards the prefrontal cortex of kids who really did not qualify as being a part of Generation X. The cool thing was, aside from the like Mortal Kombat-esque digitized graphics, which gave you the most realistic portrayal of Aerosmith's Joe Perry in video game history, the arcade cabinet is really the only way to play this game, because although there was a Super Nintendo version, I think it was just like you move the reticle around with the D-pad.
I grew up playing that SNES version a lot more than I should have. It's an inferior port of an already questionable game.
Well, okay, but the original game in the arcades was actually a lot of fun because you had like the vibrating machine gun thing. So when you pulled the trigger, it would just like shake violently, and then you'd like press like the
like Alien 3, the gun.
And it is like a goofy, like fun kind of in its stupidness, like I said, it really has nothing to do with Aerosmith. It really does.
You've said it's like cynical, but it's not like it still feels like fun in its own like weird way. Like,
imagine if like you can't really punify this, but imagine if like a game came out now that was called like Millennials the Game starring Pearl Jam. It wouldn't make any sense. You know, it would be really weird. It's just like missing the mark on every conceivable level. But that's kind of its charm. I mean, this is really like the only other thing I can really remember about this, because you can't rank this game very easily, because the only way to really appreciate it is to play the actual physical game.
As a game, it's okay, but it's not great. The thing is, let's be honest, like 99% of American-made arcade games are there to steal your money as efficiently as possible.
Like this game is a real money stealer. This game almost doesn't have like health power-ups or anything, and it's got heaps and heaps of enemies that will hit you, and you can't
just super rare.
Yeah, in comparison, like a more high-quality like-gun game like House of the Dead, I almost did beat on a single life once. You're not going to get
the closest approximate to this one is going to be another Midway game, or is it Activision? The Terminator game. Like that's pretty much exactly what it is. If you've never played that one,
the only other differentiating factor is I may be completely misremembering this. Maybe I'm just remembering like really good like cabinet artwork, but I think it had like giant by arcade machine standard speakers on the top, because you'd actually have to kind of hear what people are saying and doing, because kids will really care whether you can tell exactly what Steven Tyler is mumbling to you.
You can actually understand it, but this game's not like, it's kind of like, this game would have been impressive in 1991. This game is way too late.
I mean, that's the thing, is Aerosmith was kind of lame even in 1991. It just, for some reason, they were it was kind of like for like people's like my friend's older brother's dad's kind of band.
Well, what I mean is, like, visually, the game has, like, some pretty cool parallax, really nice, big sprites, lots of sprites on screen, constantly stuff happening.
Yeah, they did a good thing where the enemies are, like, really brightly colored. They're, like, wearing some kind of weird, like, nuclear, like, biohazard jumpsuit type thing. They're, like, quarantining the world from rock and roll.
And their leader is Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat 3, the same actress, Carrie Hoskins, so...
Who turns out she's giant mutant monster man.
Yeah, that's right.
Who quotes Monty Python.
Only an alien would want to kill rock and roll.
Although I will say,
I do want to talk about this game for a bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bob is an expert on this game, so...
Yeah, I wrote an article about this, so I feel like I'm hopefully somewhat qualified. But, like, this game, like it says, a quarter muncher. I mean, let's take another like game, like, say, Lethal Enforcers, where you know where everyone's going to pop up, and they give you, like, 2 seconds before they shoot you. And then you take this game, where you have, like, a dozen guys on screen at once at all times, they're all shooting you. You've got, like, a half dozen missiles, like, going right into you at all times, and your health bar is more of a timer than anything, because you are going to die a lot.
Like, it's physically impossible to 1cc this, as far as I know. Like, it's not designed to be...
Yeah, it basically exists for, like some kid's birthday party where all the machines are set to free play at Aladdin's castle. It's that kind of thing. In fact, I think that's the only way I ever actually saw the ending of it.
Like,
I was at some
assume,
kid's
like,
birthday party.
The main demo for this game was putting it in, like, bowling alleys where you had, like, guys who would remember Aerosmith and be like, oh, Aerosmith, cool. And then just, like, put some money in and listen to Aerosmith and be like, cool, I feel, like, young or something.
I do remember, like, kind of, I don't want to call them clever, but they resemble vague cleverness thing, like references in the game where I think there's one point where you're like in an office building and you get into an elevator and that ridiculous Aerosmith song "Love in an Elevator" plays, but it's in like an elevator music version, which nobody remembers because elevators don't play music anymore, but they used to. And so it's got like that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter if you are an Aerosmith fan and can catch the references. It's not important. None of this matters. But I mean, the game is hella crass, which you got to give it credit for. It is. I mean,
it has like a mutating machine that turns bikini women into like the cleaners from Resident Evil.
Yeah. Am I remembering this right? Did it also have like sassy like PTA moms in it?
I mean, the woman
probably
who taken over the world kind of is sassy PTA. Like she says, like
no
video games.
It's kind of like crossing Lethal Enforcers with a bubble tape commercial. Is I guess how I describe it for old people out there who remember bubble tape commercials.
Yeah, there's a lot of ridiculous crap in this game.
Your bus driver smells like garbage. Hates like bubble tape.
Oh my god, bubble tape. Do they even sell bubble tape anymore? Is that even a product?
No, it's been made completely illegal since some kid in like Minnesota choked to death on it or something. I'm guessing.
That's usually how everything gets discontinued. Yeah, the game is pretty audacious. Like you fight a giant skull made out of acid some point. Like one stage is just like attempting to destroy a heavily armored bus. It's like Desert Bus but with guns.
Oh, that's the coolest stage too. That's the one with all the objectified women with the chain gang like stuff. Yeah.
It's an interesting premise, although it is also kind of a frustrating level in some ways. But
they're all frustrating levels.
It's kind of a frustrating game in general.
That's a good point. But it is at least pretty tongue-in-cheek and ridiculous. My favorite part is the boss at the end of the giant office level, where he's like this guy standing at a desk. You just shoot him once, he falls over, then he slaps his desk, and then it morphs into some sort of like giant flying robot arms.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like the game
go to your doom.
Yeah,
right.
Oh yeah, sorry, you spoke to.
The game is, for me, it deserves points, and I want to rank it not highly, but relatively highly, just because of all the like it could have been. It didn't have to be clever or funny or anything like that. Like it would have like swallowed just as many quarters if it was completely uninspired. But it was like incredibly inspired, crass marketing.
What I would say is it's kind of like it brought the exact same sense of humor that Mortal Kombat has to the game. Like that's basically it. Like they're just
kind of, but it's even more successful because Mortal Kombat still manages to take itself seriously somehow, which I don't.
Oh, I feel like Mortal Kombat kind of wanted to take itself seriously to have a story. This game doesn't care. It's not.
No,
trying
it
to
doesn't. It's just it's so like stupid.
Soulnado in there.
And the thing is there will never be another, like, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's still kind of serious. It's weird. It's like kind of like at the last moment, a game like this could have been put out there and still been taken at face value, because
I want to put it like this. It's not a good game, but it is a fun game. You want to see what happens.
I'm not even sure it's fun. I think I think like the world and the energy that the game has is fun, but the actual game is not.
No, the actual game is not fun. But
not fun, then interesting. It's a very curious time capsule of a sort of game we'll probably never see again.
But I do appreciate that, this game is like, let's just have constant exploding blood and gore everywhere. And they don't, like, there's no reason for it. It's just like everything explodes into gore. Everything explodes. Everything just breaks.
Yeah, it's just like the Beavis and Butthead era, by the way. This is post Beavis and Butthead for sure.
It's
right?
around, if not. I think Beavis and Butthead might have been still going around its time. It was close around.
I think it's like 94 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, this is when this sort of like, again, like Mortal Kombat and that sort of thing, like this saturated, like everything has got to be blood and guts was now. This was the time for that.
When it comes to band games, it's not quite Kiss Psycho Circus, but I would rather play Revolution X than Journey Escape.
I guess the thing about Aerosmith is that the license is a bit weird in the sense that it's like, did they think that they did this? Like they wanted to make this game and they thought it was a good idea. It's not like you could see a Kiss game.
Like the Stone Temple Pilots guy was in rehab, so that's probably like their first choice. But
clearly they were going to make the game a Public Enemy, but then they couldn't, so they used Aerosmith instead.
Really?
I heard that.
that would have been really, I mean, that would have been kind of like maybe 2 years too late, but Aerosmith was like probably at that point, like 12 or 13 years too late.
Well, because as you guys said, like Aerosmith didn't really ever curry this sort of feeling anyway. It's just kind of like,
they were very, very corporate at that point. Like there was nothing rebellious, revolutionary, or au courant about them whatsoever. They were about as rock and roll as a Big Mac. Like,
also, I mean, I guess we should mention that the goal of the game is to rescue Aerosmith, and then you get to attend an Aerosmith concert. Like, beating the villain is incidental.
Subjects you to a fate worse than death.
That reminds me, I think you have to do like something special in each stage in order to find one of the Aerosmith members.
Hey,
Right,
I'm
like super
somebody, the drummer from Aerosmith. Thank you for rescuing me.
And yeah, the concert's actually a lot like the Pleasure Dome from Smash TV. Now that I think.
Yeah, I mean, like this is. I said before that I think Carmen Sandiego was a product of its time. This game is like the definition of product of its time. You could make this game in 1994. That was it. Like you could make it exactly then.
Melt 1994 down into like a solid nugget of garbage video game stuff.
Maybe this is all like, obviously like something like this is all post RoboCop, post Terminator, post Alien. This is all of these like what people think is popular, and then we'll put Aerosmith in it because whatever.
I also want
So
to
I guess
say,
what I'm trying to say is it goes right above Earthbound.
No.
I would like to rank this game. I think we've gotten as much as we can.
Like above Technocop. What do you guys think?
I'll put it below Toe Jam and Earl.
That's a pretty far metric, but I guess you technically will.
A Technocop is pretty much the metric. Like I would put it above Technocop because I feel like this game is really memorable for all the wrong reasons, but in a way like there'll never be anything like this again. And if there is, it will be totally tongue in cheek and not. Aerosmith was not in on this joke. If this was a joke, Aerosmith was not in on the joke. I
mean, the difference, of course, with this specific game is that this game was serious in its way. Like,
in a way,
it's just so audacious. It's like what the South Africans call Zeph almost. Trashy, but admirable in a way.
I'll have to take your word for it. Although kudos for knowing other people's like.
I just learned that term recently.
Simply put, it's a bad game, but it's an amazing spectacle.
You have to, especially you got to play like even just watching it on YouTube, which is probably the second best way of experiencing it, is no comparison to actually playing it on an actual machine. Which nobody's going to be able to do. That's the hard part. Is like you can't do that anymore unless you go to some like a gaming convention. But you have to play it on like the rumbling like machine gun thing to really get like the weird mix of feelings. Like this is really stupidly fun. It's like it's a bad game. It's badly designed. But
given how bad the game is, like I personally wouldn't rank it that high. But if you're certain that the experience is improved with the giant rumbling gun, I'll allow it. Because
also the sound effect of when you launch your special weapon, which are like exploding CDs, I recall that having a pretty cool sound effect.
It is quite bassy. I remember the sound effect. But
here's
no
the thing:
one's been able to play this in its optimal form.
No, but you'll just have to take my word for it, and I know, dear listeners, that you do. So, taking my word for it, like what I'm saying is that this is a game the kind of game that can never exist again. It is something trashy but special, and in its own way is like a special snowflake of a game that it just can't happen again. It is, I don't know. Does urine freeze? Can you crystallize urine into a snowflake? I don't really know how to explain it.
I mean, you can if you really want to.
Somebody can. We'll have to try this in a couple months.
I don't know. Wouldn't there be
some frozen urine, please?
Wouldn't there be too much salt in urine for it to freeze?
Jesus, why are we on
possible ammonia, right?
Here, I'm just going to suggest a place to slap it. How about
I've already suggested a place to slap it.
Oh, really? Below Technocop?
Do you think below? Was it above or below Technocop? Sorry.
I'm putting it above Technocop just because, like, this is a game that I think is worth. Technocop definitely is crass and stupid, but I mean it doesn't have Aerosmith in it, and it would benefit from Aerosmith. Let's be honest.
So
it's just
I would
it's just
rather
it's a
play-
special gem of garbage. I don't know how else to explain it. It just there's something about it
I
that's
think we brought up
magically
that point
terrible.
like 5 times. I think.
Well, what this game has going for it is that it's the most bizarre product ever produced.
Pretty much. I mean,
It's up there. It's up there. Yeah.
And for the record,
I appreciate that it exists. I just don't want to play it.
I'd say
No.
between,
Yeah. I don't recommend. You can't.
Like, I think that's the point that we're trying to emphasize. Like, you should not play this game, but you should still appreciate
Don't
it.
pay money to play it.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay.
And
But the
nobody can.
real problem is the only way to truly, as you said, enjoy this game in any real sense is to play it on the stupidly large machine. And that's something that arcade games did. That spectacle of
Right, yeah.
indulgence of a machine
That's
is
true,
something
yeah.
special. And as I mentioned, Alien 3 The Gun is a pretty nice game, but you grab those guns, and I have played Alien 3 The Gun, it's the most glorious experience ever. Like,
Actually,
Use the play surface on which the gun rests like a mirror that you can snort coke off of, because that was true of Revolution X.
That was the same thing for me in Beastbuster's Second Nightmare. The gun on that machine is redonk. It's awesome.
and also, LA Machine
All right,
Guns.
so is everybody okay right above Technocop?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. As one more party statement, Steven Tyler is definitely a better person than Gene Simmons, if nothing else. So.
True.
Are we allowed to say that?
I'm allowed to say it. And Satenga's allowed to say
I
it.
don't
He's
think a
allowed
lot
to
of
have an
people would
opinion.
disagree.
You can't sue someone for opinion, right?
This is an awkward.
I don't know. I don't have anything funny to say about Gene Simmons. I just there is a heart attack with his name on it that has taken its damn sweet time.